Hi guys, Varda here. Welcome to another video where we are making this beautiful happy birthday card. We will be using this pattern which I've already pre-stamped on a printer paper. I like to do this very often. I like to play with different patterns and settle on something I want and then translate it into a card. So this is the one that we'll be using today. I have stamped a few flower clusters and some sentiments going on there, and I will be primarily using two different stamp sets by Simon Says Stamp. The first one is called Sending Flowers. That's the one you see here. It has got some solid image flowers and some um, lines and a frame that you could embellish your um, envelopes with, but I will be using some standalone images that you see me highlighting there, the flower, the leaves, and I think that image which I'm showing is supposed to be center of the flower, but I'm not going to use that. I've already done some stamp surgery and cut off one of the smaller balls to go in the middle of the flowers, and I have mounted all those stamps on an acrylic block so I can pick them up as I go. I will not be using the other images from that stamp set, so I'm putting it on the side. Next stamp set we'll be using is this You Matter stamp set. Amazing, amazing stamp set. It has got a bunch of words in fantastic font and two big U words. So I'm going to be picking the one with all capitals and the happy birthday to at the top. And then I have, for the little sentiment things you see on the clusters, I have cut out the word love from I love. I'll be using big hugs as it is, and I've cut out the word smile from make me smile, and I'll be using those three on one each of my clusters. That's what I'll be doing. Couple things I have done is I have a top folding slate card base. I have cut out a stitch rectangle from the stitch rectangle dies. I also have a smaller rectangle panel which I was originally planning on adding the sentiment happy birthday to you on this one, but then I realized the whites don't match. Yeah, that's the thing. So the whites don't match, so I'm probably going to do something else. So let's get started with the stamping first. In my MISTI, I'm lining up the flower where I want it. And as you can see, I have played with it, so it might have a little bit of ink residue on the stamp. To avoid it, I like to put a transparent thing. It's a packaging material that I use. I keep it in my MISTI so that when I'm playing with the stamps, I don't accidentally stamp my main panel. Ask me how I know. Okay. One more very important thing I want to point out in this um, video, in this card, I have used all the inks which came in one of the Simon Says Stamp recent card kits. I love this yellow ink. It's my yellow. The ink, the yellow ink that I've been waiting for, lemon zest or lemon zing something. I'll link to the original product down below. But this is the yellow I've been waiting for. I'm definitely planning to order a bigger ink cube or at least the re-inker for this one. So the idea for this card is I'm going to create three clusters, creating a visual triangle, and then I'm going to add a sentiment somewhere in the middle of that. So that's what you see me doing. Every time I'm moving the stamp around, I'm kind of bringing in my transparent packaging material just to make sure I don't accidentally get yellow where I don't want yellow. I'm re-inking it, and with Misty, the reason I decided to use Misty, probably acrylic blocks would have been faster, but I decided to go with Misty is because I have gotten addicted to it, I think, honestly. And that's why I am not super careful lining things up because I know I can go over them one more time, and that has become kind of a habit for me. So that's what I use. But you absolutely, for this particular card, you don't have to have Misty. You can always use your acrylic blocks. And I think it will probably be faster using acrylic blocks because you don't have to do the whole closing and the opening and moving, etc. things. But this is how I did it. Okay, moving on to the leaves. I'm stamping them in again the next green ink cube that came again with the card kit. There were four inks that came with the card kit, yellow, green, orange, and watermelon. And I skipped the watermelon. Instead, I decided to go with Alto E News purple ink. And yes, I'm so bad remembering the actual names of all these colors. They are so fancy. I will link to them in the description box below, and I'll also put them on the blog so you don't have to worry about finding them or noting them down. Okay, moving on to the next bunch. I'm using the Alter Inu purple ink here for the smaller flower. The trick I like to do for some of these clusters is to use my lightest color for biggest or largest images. That way I have more of it in my darkest colors for smaller or more delicate images. Like you see me do this with the purple flower, which is kind of more darker than yellow. I kept it for the smaller flower instead of the last larger one. The green is also slightly on the darker side than the yellow, and the leaves are pretty delicate here, so it works perfectly well. So that's what I'm doing there. Also, I brought in one more ink, which is slate ink, again from Simon Says Stamp. I brought it into this mix because I wanted to match the slate card base. I wanted to bring a little more of that slate color onto my card design. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to be stamping my sentiments in all these clusters with that slate. And you'll see me do that in just a little bit. So I'm moving on to the center of the flowers, and that stamp itself is so small. I'm not going to use the MISTI. I'm not worried about rotating it in the direction of the flower, etc. I'm just picking up the color and laying it down where I want it. As simple as that. Um, the next thing, I am doing some magic. Okay, not magic, but the image on the stamp was, I think, originally intended to be the center of the flower, but to me it looked like one of the butterfly wings. So I'm going to turn it around, and I'm practicing it on the printer paper again, but I'm going to turn it around, stamp one way, turn it around, stamp the other way, and I'm going to make it appear like a tiny little butterfly. So this is a tip for you guys. Don't always stick to the rules here. I mean, look at an image, and if you think that it can work for something else, by all means. This is supposed to be an organic process. Go for it. Um, a flower petal can become a butterfly wing. Why not? As you see me do here. So that's exactly what I'm doing. It's not perfect. It doesn't mimic a butterfly perfectly or anything, but still it works. So that's the idea here. That's what I'm trying to do. So this is the last image that you see me stamping here. So I'm done mostly with stamping the flower clusters. Moving on to the words that I've cut out. Again, as I said, I want to bring in a little bit of the slate. So I'm picking it up on each of my sentiments. So first I stamped love, then I'm stamping big hugs, and I will add it to each of the cluster just to have that little bit of extra interest on this. And this is a happy birthday card. These are all the things I would wish for somebody who's having a birthday. And yes, this is intended for a special recipient who's a girl, and smile, big hugs, and love all go really well with this card. So originally you saw me having a tiny little white paper on which I had already, I took it, I stamped on it, but I didn't like the way it looked because the whites don't match. Yeah. So what I did was I had a little bit of scrap paper remaining from the same gray slate cardstock. I cut out a tiny little rectangle from it, like fussy cut it out, and I heat embossed the words "Happy Birthday to You." I'm sorry, I forgot to capture that on the camera, but I did that. I'll show heat embossing in detail in another video, I promise. So for now, I made this panel, and just to make it a little more elegant or feminine, instead of having very straight edges, I decided to round two opposite corners to give it that funky shape. And now I'm just trying to play with it, assemble the card and see how it goes. This is another thing I like to do all the time. Before I permanently adhere anything, I like to play with it and see where everything goes. That same trick applies even for some sequence. As you see me here, nothing has been adhered down, but I played with it. I kind of know where I want what to go. And that way I can change my mind as many times as I want before I make anything permanent. And then I go and glue it down. So I'm adding foam tape to the back of the sentiment piece you see there, and I'm adhering it in that middle white space which we had in between those three flower clusters. And Yes, I'm setting it down. It looks good where it is. The next step is I'm going to play with the centers of those purple flowers. This is a very elegant kind of a design, so I decided to go with pearl centers for those purple flowers. And I'm just picking it up with my craft knife very delicately. I'm keeping two medium, mediumish, medium sized pearls, and one very tiny pearl for the top flower, just to give it like some change in size. And I'm going to adhere that down, and I'm also going to add one more, like a small drop of a pearl, to the sentiment strip that you'll see me do later. To adhere all my sequins, I'm simply using a quickie glue pen. This came in one of the very old card kits by Simon Says Stamp, and believe me, guys, the Simon Says card kit are an excellent value for money, and I'm addicted. I'm a devout fan of these kits. They make me try so many new things that I fall in love with, and I would not have experimented with these had it not been for the kits. So one of my big reasons for using Simon Says Stamp kits is that they inspire me to try new things, and I love them. Like this quickie glue pen here, I used it to adhere all my sequins in place, and then finally I'm adding one tiny pearl to the sentiment strip, and I will add one more purple sequence. Just tuck it half underneath the uh, sentiment panel, and the pen is an excellent helper out here. So that finishes my card panel. Now the only thing left to do is to attach the card panel to the card base. But before I do that, I decided to spruce it up just a little bit. I'm adding gold stickles to the center of those flowers. So that makes it even more prettier, I think. And it matches the gold sequence we have on there, so that works perfectly. Um, I will, as a last step, I will simply take score tape. I want to make sure I'm putting it on the right side, and ask me how I know. I've done that many times, messed up so many beautiful cards just because I didn't adhere it on the right side. Yeah, really. Okay, so I am going to take pieces of score tape and put it on my card base, and take off the backing. You know the drill. Take off the backing and then adhere my top panel on there and secure it in place. So that is the card for today. It's a happy birthday floral card. So many tips here on creating a visual triangle, playing with colors, and yeah, adding even sentiments to those flower clusters. I hope they inspire you to try something like this and make it your own. And I hope you like this card and come back and visit me more often. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and feel inspired to try something like this. Thank you so much.